Hey, welcome back everyone. It's Glenn here with just an update. We're finally making some strides with getting some paint on Nelson. So I constructed a paint booth inside my shop and made it out of 2x3s. They were cheap, and I think I ordered 50 of them to construct this. It's 14 feet wide and about 18.5 feet long, and then I coated the whole inside with the 4 mil plastic, and yeah, put some lighting in here. I've got some filtered air coming in, keep the dust down on the back wall, and then on the front wall I've got 4 box fans with filters on them to draw the air across, and that should work pretty good. In my test it's got pretty good airflow, and I've got Nelson here, the body. After about 5 quarts of elbow grease, I've got the paint off where I need to on the exterior, and I've scuffed up all the other areas real well, and then back taped everything earlier today. I would have already been painting today, except there's been some pretty severe thunderstorms that moved through here, and the power's gone off a couple of times. So now that the storms are gone, it's going to be a late night, and I want to get this done. What I'm going to do is put on some, I've got some Summit DTM epoxy primer in black, and this is a 1-to-1 mix with the catalyst, and I might reduce it just a little bit on the first coat. What I've also been reading is some of these areas that I just cannot get into these cracks and crevices that are under here. I've reached in there as good as I can to clean several times, but I've also got some U-Pole adhesion promoter that's made specifically for that purpose, and I've roughened up the surface with an 80 grit and then a 180 grit DA sander, and then I've gone over it with a really coarse Scotch-Brite, and I'm going to do one more clean and use some prep spray and get it prepped off, and then tack rag it, get all the dust that I can, control that as much as possible. So hopefully we'll get this thing in primer, and after the epoxy and this stuff, they want you to wait 30 minutes between each coat, and they say 2 medium wet coats with an HVLP, and you just set your gun at 8 to 10 psi at the tip when you've got the trigger pulled. So once that's done, we'll get that dried, and then probably early in the morning, since there's 2 coats, they want you to wait 60 minutes minimum until you recoat with anything else. And what I plan to do on this is I've got some Evercoat G2 feather fill, and you know, this stuff it's like spraying body filler on. It'll probably build up to 1 millimeter thickness or so, and that'll let me really straighten out these panels and some of the areas that I've repaired. You know, I took the roof rack off, and I welded up the where the attachment holes were, and I had a little deviation there, so I used some actual JB Weld to fill it, and that should level out pretty good. And then the only rust through area I had on this body was a slight amount down here at this corner, and that's typical on a Chevrolet because of the way they drain the AC. The condensate comes out in this area, and it's always bad there. It's, you know, the frames rust there, the body, that's your worst area on these older vehicles. I'm gonna have to look at that. I'm gonna probably try to add a drain that's better than factory. I'll hose that out somewhere. But yeah, I'm gonna spray these hard to get to areas. I've tried to scuff it up as much as possible with Scotch-Brite. You know, I didn't take this body to sandblasting or the dustless blasting. It just wasn't in the budget. But I did spend several hours stripping the paint off of this. One of the earlier videos, I think the last video I showed you, where I just couldn't find a stripper that would work, so I did it manually. But it all looks pretty good. In fact, if I could get it all to look like this, I'd probably shoot clear over it and leave it, but it's a pretty cool finish. That's just where the original sheet metal was. So, but no, it's I'm going to paint this. I've mixed up some special paint for it, special color. We'll get into that later. But yeah, I'm going to put the epoxy down. That'll give a real good seal against corrosion. And then I'm going to do the feather fill, do the block sanding. That'll probably take a week or two, and then get some color on here, which is actually a waterborne paint I've used before, and it works really well, and the colors are really unique. So I've got that. It's easy to apply. It's basically a sealer that's colored, and I've got metallic in it and some other stuff, and I like the color, and so we're going to shoot that in this. And then there's it's like a tri-coat, because I've got to shoot a intermediate clear mid coat that has a waterborne paint that is a hot rod sparkle, and it's a little bit larger flake, but it's not like Bass Boat, and it's mixed in that mid coat clear. And then of course I'm going to top it with some high solids clear. Now the paints I'm using are pretty much all low VOC, so even though we're not required to meet those standards here, it's just what I got, and they work fine. So anyway, I'm not going to show you the painting process. You can watch other YouTube videos, and there's people that really know what they're doing, that if you want to learn how to paint, I suggest you watch those videos, some of those videos. Paint Society is great, and some others. Far Away. Some of these guys do a good job explaining how to do things, and so I'm not going to bore you with the actual painting process, which is going to be strung out over a period of time. But I'll do an update after I get the epoxy on. This will all be black, and we'll take a look at it again, and then I'll give you my thoughts on the Summit DTM epoxy primer. So and then we'll get into the G2 feather fill And now that's going to be a different gun. What I'm using for the epoxy is just my green Harbor Freight that works really well. I've cleaned the passages out in the tip and kind of deburred things, and I've used this before, and I am using their interchange cup system, which is really helpful. So I'm using a 1.4 tip on that, and then this is what I'm going to use for the G2 feather fill. This is like a 2.5 tip. That stuff is really thick, and if you don't mix it and lay it down, it will harden up on you in the gun, and you have to be ready to go, because it has an activator and it sets up pretty quick from what I'm reading. And so we'll get on with it, and it's going to be a long night for me, but I think we'll make some good progress here. So wish me luck, and I'll see you after this is black with the epoxy primer. Thanks. Alright, it's been a couple hours, maybe 3 later. We had another thunderstorm move through, but I was able to get the epoxy down. I got 2 wet coats, and I must say this stuff laid down really good. Was real pleased with it. Got into everywhere. Easy to mix. It flowed pretty good, although I did have to turn the air pressure up on the paint gun to about 12 psi, and so that ought to be a really good base for then applying the feather fill G2. I went back and read the technical data sheet on this, and yeah, it says a minimum of 60 minutes drying time before putting anything else on this, but it is definitely okay to wait a considerable amount of more time, maybe even 3 or 4 days, without having to sand this prior to putting anything else on. So just a quick update. Maybe tomorrow I will go ahead and put the feather fill on and let this thing fully dry. I'm going to leave the fans running. They did their job. This booth worked out really well. I didn't see any fog from overspray the whole time I was painting this, so I'm hoping that holds true during the actual paint and clear. I know clear probably won't, but the booth is doing its job keeping this thing pretty clean. So at least now I can see every little imperfection in this and come back. It looks like the worst case thing I've got to do is maybe take some cream spot fill, mix that up instead of having to do full Bondo or something like that, just in some spots. And but there again, the feather fill may take care of most of that, and you know, when I guide coat that and block sand it, it's going to look pretty good. So I feel real good about corrosion protection here. I will do the firewall separately, because I am going to do a satin black on that. I need to clean this a little bit more, but I just wanted to get this thing sealed and get on the way with some final body work. You can see I've got I've got doors underneath here. I've got the rear hatch and the fenders there, ready to do a final cleaning, and I've got plenty of the epoxy left. I think I wound up using 48 ounces to do 2 coats on this. So I bought a gallon, and it comes with a gallon of reducer, so that's actually 2 gallons, so I've got plenty. And anyway, I'll give you an update as we get to the next stage, but until then. Alright, we are back. We've got a couple of coats of the Evercoat Featherfill G2 on here. That stuff is a bear to work with. It laid down good when it sprayed. It's pretty hot here, so I think it activated pretty quick. Matter of fact, about when I was finishing up the second coat, and I want to do 3 and maybe another coat in some of the areas I know there were some imperfections. The gun clogged up, it started hardening inside the gun, and I knew that that was a cheap Harbor Freight gun, kind of a conventional, and it did not spray well. In fact, the fan pattern on this thing was probably 3 to 4 inches at best. So away it goes. I've ordered a better gun with a 2.0 tip, and hopefully that will work. I'll have that in a couple of days. What I'll have to do is take a Scotch-Brite and just roughen this up a little bit, and go ahead and put probably 2 more coats on this. Now, in the meantime, I have checked a lot of blogs on the internet, and they're telling me that in hot weather like this, it is okay to throw just a tiny amount of reducer in to this mix. So lacquer thinner, and I've got some of that, so I'm going to try that. I'm also going to probably have to wait till nighttime, when the timing's right for me to do this next coat. But it did lay down pretty good. It just, man, this stuff hardens quick, and so I've got a good basis here. I've got a couple of light spots. I'm just going to go over the whole thing again, a couple of coats, you know, and then start my block sanding. It's got a really good foundation now to work with. Use some guide coat, and you know, this is not a SEMA show quality car by any means at all. I'm not after that. I just want a good solid paint job that looks pretty cool, and you know, it's to my ability. I've only painted a few cars, but you know, just studying a lot and practicing on some other things, you kind of learn what to do and what not to do. And you know, a lot of people will teach you stuff, and you know, you get information, good and bad. But I gotta say that the way I handled this with the paint booth, you know, it cost me about $300 to put this up, and I will be able to reuse most of the materials that I built this with. And I got plenty of lighting in here, plus I've got overhead lighting in the shop that actually shines down through the plastic as well, so it really is lit up pretty good. But as far as dust control, I couldn't ask for anything better. I've changed filters a couple of times up here, and they're doing their job. You know, these cheap AC filters, they will catch the particulate and let the odors out. And it's a good way to do that. Get a good cross flow in here, and there's no appreciable fog developed from overspray in anything I've done so far, so I'm really happy with that. So just wanted to give you an update here, and we'll move forward. Going to be a couple of days before I can get on this, and once I do this, I'm going to let this sit, turn it sideways in here, and that'll give me some more room up front to get the other body parts in here, get the doors in here, get them laid up and do that. Now I will put the doors on the vehicle when I do the final paint coat, the color, just so the metallics line up. I don't think my capability is good enough to maintain a spray pattern on metallics that I can do separate, you know, pieces. I want to use the same paint that I mix up in the gun, just do a complete one end to the other, and then probably take the doors back off to then go ahead and clear all the jams. I'll have to take a look at that. Now I won't attach the fenders. I will set them slightly ahead so that I can get in here with color and then get the fenders all in one motion, and probably do the same thing for clear, so get everything in there. And but we're moving forward, and I feel really good about this. I'm not worried about any rust developing now, so got a really good base of the epoxy, and then this high build polyester, and I want to get a couple more coats on there, so we'll just take a Scotch-Brite and lightly roughen up, give it a better surface to bite in, and it should adhere pretty good, no problems. I am going to be probably using a little bit of filler, real thin, but mostly the spot glazing putty. It's like a really fine filler, and grab some of that and you mix that up just like, you know, with a hardener. So but it's a really smooth putty made for really small spot areas, and I've got a few of those areas where I welded holes closed, things like that. There's some minor imperfections that I know I can get those out. So, but I appreciate you liking, watching. Give me a comment. I like to read the comments, and I really appreciate my new subscribers. I've got a few now, and it makes me happy that people like what I'm doing enough to click the button. And you know, I'm not sponsored by anybody. I'm not monetizing any of this. It's just me out here trying to have fun with a car. Admittedly, it's I have not seen one of these cars in any car show, any Cars and Coffee, any rally. I even went to the closing location was here in Bristol for the 2023 Hot Rod Power Tour, and I was there most of the day and never saw a four-door Blazer. Maybe that makes me the only stupid guy in the world, but hey, I like it, and I'm just trying to make it cool and make a good cruiser out of it, and we'll see what we get. So anyway, thanks a lot. Hope you all are doing well, and I'll give you an update after I get this next coat, a couple of coats on there, and start working on the other body panels. You can see some of them stacked up in the back. So be well, and I'll be back soon. Thanks.